Good evening, the news now from Meridian. Police are hunting a couple who stole cash from a pensioner in Reading by posing as community care workers. It happened in Star Road, Caversham earlier this week. The pair entered the 86-year-old's house, and while the woman spoke to them, the man went upstairs to use the bathroom. But after they'd left, the victim realised they'd stolen almost £300 in cash. A shop owner has been assaulted and racially abused in Farnborough. The Asian owner of the Jean shop in Queensmead received cuts to his head, face and hand. Police want to speak to a white man who's between 5'8" and 5'10" tall with shaven brown hair. He was wearing jeans and a black jacket. Plans for almost 100,000 extra flights a year at Heathrow have been delayed because of the possible impact on air pollution and noise. Consultation on the scheme that would allow planes to take off and land on 2 runways at the same time has been postponed by the government until the end of the year. People under the flight path in Surrey and Berkshire say it would mean noise at all times of the day. The airlines, however, say the scheme is needed to allow extra flights, but say the best option would be to have a 3rd runway. Work's now well underway on the transformation of a former gravel pit into one of Berkshire's most stunning nature reserves. A year since work began, the gravel pit in Aldermaston is now being restored to its former glory. But the site's been badly damaged by the gravel extraction over the years, as Kay Oliver reports.
What a difference a year makes. The gravel pits are slowly disappearing, being replaced by lakes and wetland areas. Soon, the wildlife will be returning. English Nature bought the pits at Aldermaston and gave it to the Berkshire, Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire Wildlife Trusts. Now, thanks to funding from a tax paid by gravel companies and the hard work of dedicated teams of volunteers, the vast site is being transformed. 300 metres of boardwalk have now sprung up on this site. With plans for a further 600 metres of track, it should ensure brilliant access when it finally opens to the public.
In the clearing that the boardwalk skirts around, we're going to be creating a large wildlife pond. We also have plans for a wader area for wading birds. And in the longer term, we hope to improve the quality of the water and start attracting a lot of the birds back to the site that used to be found here.
The hope is that one day this site will be returned to its former glory.
Well, this will be primarily a site for birds. There'll be bird hides where people can come and have a look at the heronry, for example, on site. And also there's other interesting species here, such as moths and little mammals such as waterfowl. We are hoping in the future maybe to build an education centre on site as well, so to open it up to more people.
A conservation group from Southampton University, here to do some hedge laying.
The idea is to create sort of a boundary between the waterway and where the sort of walkway is, so the birds don't sort of get disturbed when visitors have come sort of later on in the year.
There's quite a lot of wildlife that they're going to attract back to the area, and increasing species diversity is really important for the site.
They've come a long way, and in 2008, this site will finally be open to the public. Kay Oliver in Aldermaston for Meridian News.
Shoppers in Wokingham have been snapping up some fair trade bargains today. Food and crafts produced in the developing world have been on sale at the town's market. The stall was organised by the Wokingham Fair Trade campaign to raise awareness and encourage local businesses to stock the products. The team, who have won the support of Wokingham MP John Redwood, want to produce a list of local shops and restaurants who stock fair trade goods.
It's good for people to know where their foods come from, that they can see traceability in the chain with fair trade products. They know that the banana producers at the bottom of the pile who are working on the plantations are actually getting paid a fair wage. They're not being exposed to huge amounts of chemicals, and that children aren't having to work in the fields with their families. Children can go to school.
We're sending a very strong message that you can make a direct contribution to tackling poverty in the poorest countries of the world if you buy their products. They have some very good products. 2 I bought are organic. I'm sure that the health faddists will say I shouldn't have the chocolate, but it's not going to stop me. And I think organic, fair trade chocolate is an extremely good idea. Very attractive products available. So I would urge as many people as possible to practice what they preach. We want to tackle world poverty. Best way is to buy their goods.
John Redwood there. Well, on to sport, and Reading were looking to take another giant step towards promotion this afternoon, but the Royals have never beaten their opponents Wolves at the Medeski Stadium. Well, a sellout crowd were there to cheer the promotion chasers on, along with our reporter, David Riley.
Points for Glenn Hoddle's Wolves would help their playoff hopes, but just a few more wins for Reading would guarantee them Premiership football next season. Despite a few half chances early on, it was Wolves who got the ball into the back of the net first. Jeremy Ali Adair beating Marcus Hahnemann. Luckily for the home fans, it was disallowed for offside. Just a few minutes later, though, the league leaders were ahead. Doyle's ball fell luckily to John Oster, who put the ball into the danger zone, where Bobby Convey was waiting to rocket the ball into the roof of the net. However, Wolves weren't ready to lie down. 10 minutes before half-time, they were almost level. Some slack defending called for some brave goalkeeping to deny Thomas Frankowski. But the visitors were lucky not to be 4 down by half-time. First, the lively Convey ran half the pitch to have a pop. Then Doyle also tried to make his own luck. And after scoring so many of these all season, Ibrahima Sonko failed to make this header count. After the break, Steve Coppell's men started in the same vein, Convey muscling through to get a shot on goal. But then, while failing to clear properly, Ingemarson inadvertently teed up Kenny Miller to score with just under half an hour left. And the Royals could so easily have gone behind 10 minutes later, but for another great save from Marcus Hahnemann. But the scores stayed the same until the final whistle. It finished Reading 1, Wolves 1, and with Leeds also drawing, the Royals won't be promoted until next weekend at the earliest. David Riley for Meridian News.
Not such good news for our other team. In League One, relegation threatened Swindon Town lost 1-0 at Colchester. Chris Uwaluma got the first and only goal for the home side. It came for the penalty spot after a quarter of an hour. The Robins remain second from bottom in the table. Southampton play Watford on Monday, but Saints' youth team have been in action today. They crashed out of the FA Youth Cup on penalties last night. Saints won the second leg of the semi-final against Liverpool 3-2, but after losing the first game 2-1 at Anfield, the result took the game to penalties. The Reds made the final after winning 5-4 on spot kicks. On to cricket, and Hampshire have 2 representatives playing in the final test match in India, which started today. Batsman Kevin Peterson hit 5 fours and a huge 6 on his way to making 39 in Mumbai. He was eventually caught behind, however, off the bowling of Srinath with this ball. England reached 272 for the loss of 3 wickets at the close. Peterson's Hampshire teammate Sean Udell is also playing in Mumbai, but is yet to bat. One big ice hockey match to tell you about. The Basingstoke Bison have the first of their home matches in the Elite League playoffs. They meet Sheffield on Sunday evening. The Steelers won their last meeting. Finally, another athlete from the south has made the podium at the Commonwealth Games. Julia Beckett from Winchester was part of the 4x200 metre relay team that won silver in the pool today. Tomorrow, Reading's Rebecca Cook will be going for gold in the 800 metre freestyle out in Melbourne. Good luck to her. Now, though, here's Martin with the weather.
See France, Dover Cali Ferries, sponsors of Meridian Weather. Hello, good evening. Sunshine was a bit hit and miss today. Some people did okay. You can see on the satellite picture loads of sunshine across France and the Channel, quite a bit over Kent for a while. The clear spells did drift towards us from time to time through the day. So we've had sunny spells. We'll have a similar story tomorrow. This band of cloud out to the northeast is drifting down towards us, but I think as it comes our way, there'll be some holes in it. So it is going to stay dry in spite of all this cloud, and there'll be one or two sunny spells through the day tomorrow. Overnight tonight, clear spells will come along from time to time, and that means temperatures down to around 1 degree. So I think we'll stay away from a frost tonight. Might be a touch of frost on the ground, but no air frost tonight. But still a pretty chilly old night in those northeast winds. And then tomorrow, like today, a lot of cloud around, very little rain, if any at all. It should be mostly dry tomorrow. And the sunny spells will come and go through the day, just enough to brighten it up a fraction. And hopefully tomorrow it should be just a touch warmer than it was today. Today we managed 6s and 7s. Tomorrow it's about 7 or 8, I think. 8 is 46. That's still colder than it should be, of course, and it's going to stay chilly for the next few days. Daytime temperatures only 7 or 8, but it's still mostly dry.
Well, that's it from the newsroom for now. We'll be back with 2 bulletins tomorrow, 10 past 2 and 6:30. Do join us then if you can. From us all, though, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.
Heart rates soar to over 200 beats per minute. Hearing and vision can become impaired. For all the pain, there will be glory. The Boat Race 2006, coming soon, ITV1.
Big Small, when something small has the characteristics of something much bigger than itself, whether that be in size, quality, design, technology, performance, safety, or all of these. The all-new Yaris from Toyota. Big Small. Put it in your dictionary.
These are not just chocolates. These are gift-wrapped chocolates made by the finest Belgian chocolatiers. This is not just an orchid. This is a hand-selected, long-lasting, luxury-planted orchid. This is not just Mother's Day. This is M&S Mother's Day.
Any itch is uncomfortable, but feminine itching makes you so anxious and irritable, you can't concentrate on anything else.
Vagisil medicated cream applied externally can quickly stop that irritating, burning feminine itch.
Now I can get on with my day.
Vagisil medicated cream for fast relief of feminine itching.
Walking, cycling, surfing, sailing. Deciding what not to do on the Isle of Wight may be tricky, but getting here is easy. This spring, Whitelink short breaks from Portsmouth and Lymington start at £50 for a car and 6 people, and day trips at £34 for a car and 4. See local press, visit our website or call our hotline.
At Underwood Solicitors, we know how harsh it can feel when you've been dismissed or unfairly treated at work. But calling Underwoods on 0800 298 4298 is the first step in getting the help you deserve. And as solicitors specializing in employment law, we win the majority of our cases. Because if we don't win, we don't get paid. Call 0800 298 4298. Underwoods. No win, no fee.
We have searched the world for the most beautiful sofas. Bright colours, vibrant styles, luxury and comfort, and tiny introductory prices. But they end soon. All this just $399. Wow, £400 off. There's 4 years free credit, nothing to pay for the first year, and at least £250 off every sofa and corner group in the fabulous new spring collection at DFS.
Furniture buying can be such a chore.
Unless, of course, you choose the right store. Wokingham Berkshire has just the place.
Where discerning buyers can end their chase for top-name brands at warehouse prices.
Free parking for cars is right outside, and a playroom for kids we also provide.
So treat yourself to some buying pleasure. Check out our fine furniture at leisure.
With excellent service, home delivery and more from Furniture and Bedding Superstore.
Open 7 days a week in Molly Millers Lane, Wokingham.
And in Yellow Pages.
You've probably heard about the benefits of including more omega-3 in your diet. But the most effective form of omega-3 for keeping the heart healthy can only be found in certain fish and just one spread. New St. Ivel Gold with the most effective omega-3.
You're with ITV1, and now, the ITV News.
Tens of thousands march in anti-war protests on the streets of London. Their call, 3 years on, bring our troops home from Iraq. In Iraq, the Defence Secretary said he wished the country would march against terrorism instead. We'll have the latest pictures and all the reaction. Also tonight, making good progress. 2 of the men in the botched drugs trial are taken off life support. Mourn to the last, thousands attend the funeral of the former Yugoslav dictator Slobodan Milosevic. And running rings round them, Wales make mincemeat of France's defence. But is it enough to win? Good evening. Throughout the world, tens of thousands of people have been marching today to protest against the war in Iraq. 3 years after it began, they've gathered to call for British and American troops to be pulled out and Iraq left to build its own future. In London, thousands marched into Trafalgar Square and listened to speeches calling for peace. In America, they're marching too, determined to have their voices heard on both sides of the Atlantic. It was all in stark contrast to the bombs that have become an almost daily occurrence on the streets of Iraq. Paul Larsman reports now from Trafalgar Square.
It takes all sorts to make a demo, and among the thousands who marched through London this afternoon, there were all sorts of people, perspectives and points of view. One message united them all, though: get the troops out of Iraq. You're an ex-soldier, aren't you?
Yes.
Why are you here today?
I am here today to bring pressure on the government to bring our troops home. I'm from Basra.
Why are you here today?
I'm here to protest at the continuous slaughter of my brethren, my sisters, and all the Iraqis.
Soon Trafalgar Square was bursting at the seams. Among the speakers, veteran peace campaigner Tony Benn.
It is a crime to turn this war into a religious war. It is not a religious war.
A wave of global protests began in Australia, which still has 1,300 troops in Iraq. Crowds marched in Sydney, calling for soldiers to be sent home. In the Danish capital of Copenhagen, protesters rallied outside the US Embassy. Attacks on Danish soldiers have increased since the publication of cartoons that outraged many Muslims. In Iraq, meanwhile, there's been grim reminders that the violence continues. A group of Shiite pilgrims was attacked by insurgents south of Baghdad, and US forces killed 2 gunmen and uncovered a stash of roadside bombs. Back in Trafalgar Square, there was a moving contribution from the sister of Sergeant Bob O'Connor, who died when a Hercules jet crashed in Iraq.
So it's about the fact that whatever this is, what sham this has turned into and what web of lies, let the politicians sort it out, not the good men and women of the British Armed Forces, and don't let your British public or the public of the world lose their loved ones anymore.
There was also concern today about the pressure being exerted on Iran over its nuclear program. Many protesters fear that the US in particular is sabre-rattling rather than looking for a diplomatic solution. Paul Larsman, ITV News.
And Paul Larsman is in Trafalgar Square tonight.
Well, the demonstration is winding up now, and as yet there's been no reaction from the government here. The Secretary of State for Defence, John Reid, however, is in Iraq, where he's meeting the Iraqi Prime Minister and President. And earlier he said this about today's demo. He said it would be good to get as many people out on the streets marching against terrorism and in support of the people in Iraq. Well, I don't think that's a sentiment that would go down very well here. Back to you.
Thanks, Paul. Now, 2 of the 6 men involved in a drugs trial that went disastrously wrong appear to have made a significant improvement. Doctors at the North London Hospital, where they're being treated, are cautiously optimistic tonight. Well, Philip Bray-Smith is at the hospital for us now. Philip, what can you tell us about the latest developments there?
Good evening to you, Andrea. Yes, well, encouraging news for the families of two of the patients here at the hospital in that latest update that we received this evening. These two men, they have been taken off organ support. That's the hospital's term. They're not explaining what that specifically means for reasons of patient confidentiality, but what it's likely to mean is that they're now no longer on ventilators and no longer receiving kidney dialysis. And certainly we do know they are now awake and talking to their families who are at their bedsides. The other two men who were also described as in a serious condition, they now too are also fully conscious and talking to their relatives. However, they are still receiving some forms of organ support. Again, the hospital not being exactly too specific as to what that means. As to the other two men, the final pair of the six, these were the two that were described all along as in a critical condition. The news here, I'm afraid, is not quite as good. They remain in a critical condition, they remain unconscious, although they have seen some small signs of improvement. Doctors say they now have a better understanding of what these men have been through, but it's still far too early to give any kind of accurate prognosis as to those two men, even whether they'll get through this ordeal.
OK, Philip, thanks very much for that. Now, it wasn't meant to be a state funeral, but at times it certainly looked like one, as tens of thousands of his supporters packed Belgrade city centre for a memorial service for former Yugoslav President Slobodan Milosevic today. With the coffin centre stage, the crowd chanted his name. His final resting place, his home, a small town 30 miles from the capital, as Rob Murphy reports.
To shouts of Slobo, Milosevic's body was returned to the city, which was once his power base. He may be seen as a villain abroad, but at home, it seems, he still has his supporters. Around 50,000 squeezed into this corner of Belgrade. They paid their respects to a man who was, for so long, the region's dominant politician. After becoming president of Yugoslavia in 1989, the country disintegrated into civil war. More people died than in any other European conflict since 1945. Milosevic was eventually arrested and stood before the War Crimes Tribunal in The Hague. He was charged with genocide. He died there last week before justice could be done. Today, many in this crowd believed their former leader was murdered. Just a day before Milosevic died, he said he was being poisoned, but independent test results confirmed a heart attack took his life. This afternoon, his hometown came out for his final journey, but the mourners did not include his close family. They live in exile and would face charges if they returned. And despite these crowds, Milosevic is now deeply unpopular among most Serbs. As he was laid to rest, so too was a chapter in this country's history. Robert Murphy, ITV News.
Well, some other stories making the headlines. Sinn Féin leader Gerry Adams has been held at an American airport because his name came up on a list of suspected terrorists. The Sinn Féin president, seen here in America last year, missed a trip to New York to mark St. Patrick's Day because of the delay. A US Homeland Security official stressed he wasn't arrested. It's also been revealed that a suspected terrorist, Mahmoud Abu Rida, visited the Houses of Parliament this week. A former detainee at Belmarsh prison, who is now on a control order, he claims to have sat in the Commons public gallery during a debate. He was invited into the House by the Labour peer, Lord Ahmed. And the government has organised a special national event to give the public the chance to quiz MPs and experts on how to best solve the pensions crisis. The National Pensioners' Convention today called for the basic state pension to be raised by £30. Now, two Britons have been jailed in India for 6 years after sexually abusing boys there. 61-year-old Duncan Grant and 58-year-old Alan Waters abused children at a shelter for street children in Mumbai. The judge, who also fined them £20,000 each, said he hoped the convictions would deter other paedophiles from believing that poor Indian children were easy prey. Shuli Ghosh reports.
On the surface, Duncan Grant was a kind-hearted charity worker who created a safe haven for street children in Mumbai. But in reality, the North Londoner was an evil paedophile who systematically abused the young boys in his care. Today, at an Indian court, he and his accomplice Alan Waters, a retired naval officer from Hampshire, were jailed for 6 years and fined £20,000 each for their depraved acts. Social workers say the judge wanted to send a clear message.
You can't come into the country, either from outside or even within the country, sexually abuse our children and think you can get away with it. It's going to be looked at very strictly and very stringently.
Grant preyed on vulnerable street children. His shelter housed 90 boys as young as 8. Waters was a frequent visitor. They were helped by a third man, an Indian who managed the shelter, who was also jailed.
They systematically set up and went and operated orphanages to prey on vulnerable children. But this is only the beginning. There's much more that has to be done here to identify other people who are doing just the same thing.
Grant also ran children's charities in Tanzania. He was finally arrested when Indian police issued an international warrant. Shuli Ghosh, ITV News.
Well, now the sport, and in rugby union, France stand on the verge of being crowned the new Six Nations champions. They snatched a dramatic last-gasp victory over Wales, which means that Ireland will have to thrash England at Twickenham this evening if they're to take the title instead. Here's Neil Roberts.
France arrived at the home of the outgoing Six Nations champions, expecting to be awarded their crown. But the Welsh Dragon was breathing real fire in Cardiff, and Hal Luscombe's try put the French 10 points behind by half-time. But in the second half, France showed the spirit of champions. Dimitri Zarzewski crossed the line to bring them back into the match. Then, just as Wales seemed to be giving fresh hope to Ireland and even England, Florian Fritz scored the try which should give the French their crown. Ireland need to beat England by an unlikely 33 points this evening if they're to cause a Six Nations shock. Wales 16, France 21. Earlier, Scotland completed their third victory of the tournament with their first win away from home in the Six Nations for 4 years. Mirko Bergamasco's early try gave Italy the advantage in Rome, but Chris Patterson hit back with a try for Scotland, which levelled the scores. Then he won the match with his boot. The number 10 converted a pressure penalty with 2 minutes to go to seal a 13-10 win and condemn Italy to the wooden spoon. Neil Roberts, ITV News.
Everton's unlikely push for a European place has gathered more momentum after a 4-1 thrashing of Aston Villa. David Moyes' team were rock bottom of the Premiership in October, but they've now taken 23 points from their last 10 games. James McFadden scored the goal of the game at Goodison Park before Tim Cahill sealed an emphatic win in the last minute. Well, here with all the other results from today's Premiership matches is Alex Hornell.
Thanks, Andrea. The Barclays Premiership. Arsenal 3, Charlton 0. Birmingham City 0, Tottenham 0. Blackburn Rovers 3, Middlesbrough 2. Bolton 2, Sunderland 0. Everton 4, Aston Villa 1. Manchester City 0, Wigan 1. West Brom 1, Manchester United 2. West Ham 2, Portsmouth 4. The Bank of Scotland Scottish Premier League. Aberdeen 3, Livingston 0. Kilmarnock 2, Falkirk 1. And finally, Motherwell 2, Hibernian 2.
Now Scotland are celebrating a historic third swimming gold in the Commonwealth Games. Gregor Tate raced to victory in the 200 metres backstroke for the Scots. Then England shared the glory. First, Chris Cook led home and England 1-2 in the 100 metres breaststroke. Then England swimmers just edged out Scotland to win the men's 4x200 metre relay. There was another team victory for England in cycling. They beat Australia in the men's 4,000 metres team pursuit. England's first gold in that event in more than 30 years. And England's world champion Victoria Pendleton took gold in the women's sprint to cap another memorable day in Melbourne for the home nations. Cricket and England have battered themselves into a strong position on day one of the crucial final test in India. And Andrew Strice was the hero for the tourists. He top scored with 128 as England piled on 272 for 3. And that was after India had won the toss and put England into bat. England must win the match in Mumbai if they're to draw the series. Finally, Jenson Button will start on the front row of the grid for tomorrow's Malaysian Grand Prix. The Englishman qualified second quickest for the race behind Renault's Giancarlo Fisichella. Williams drivers Nico Rosberg and Mark Webber will start third and fourth.
He's now done a 34.5 with race fuel.
Well, that is the news this Saturday evening. We'll be back with all the latest headlines at 11:25. And, of course, the result of that England versus Ireland Six Nations match. So do join me then for that. Goodbye.
It's like a fat wizard riding a dragon. It's a whale playing golf. Look, he's in the bunker.
ITV National Weather, sponsored by Powergen.
Hello again, good evening. So looking ahead to the next few days, we've got a very similar picture in store. High pressure in control, so a lot of dry weather around still, but still rather cloudy, remaining chilly as well with some night frosts expected, and that's certainly what we're going to see across the western half of the country tonight. Clearing skies, some cool temperatures, not so towards the eastern flank though, rather more cloud for you as well, and I do think we are going to see some spots of rain in places, potentially turning rather wintry across the higher ground. So looking ahead to Sunday, and once again the eastern flank is going to see more in the way of that cloud continuing, mostly dry, just a few spots of rain in places, and across the western and southern half of the country, much more in the way of brightness, some good sunny spells in places, but as you can see, temperatures on the disappointing side once again. I'll see you later.
I don't know what it is. It's a banana, but it's crying.
Positive energy from Powergen.